Hi everyone, another scratch guide. This time we're going to do some artworks. We made some games before, we've done some art before. This time we're going to do some art again. This one's actually one of my favourites. It's really fun to use, really fun to play with. There is a lot of blocks on this one. Lots of different chunks of blocks as well, not just one really long one. It's got lots of little bits, so you have to be really paying attention. I'll try and leave as much as on the screen as I can. Make sure you pause in this video to look at the code that I've put on the screen. So let's get started. Let's get going. First thing, delete the cat. Let's get rid of that cat. Right, now we don't want a backdrop this time. We just want the ball. I really like using this one actually. I use it quite a lot. So let's bring this on. Now what I want to do is I want to start off where we're doing a reset button. So we're ready to go. We're ready to start whenever we're doing an art project. Now, because this is an art one, we are going to need the pen blocks. Forgot to say that. So let's go to add extension. Let's click on the pen. So now we've got these extra pen blocks. This one's called this art project is called the Rainbow Trail. And what we're going to do is we're going to move this ball around our screen. And as it moves, it's going to leave behind it a trail of colour. I think it looks really cool. And at the moment, with the rainbows being so popular, it's going to look amazing when we play around, when we create with it. So let's get that reset button first. Let's get the boring bit out of the way first. Let's go to, when I press green, make it slightly bigger. There we go. What I want the ball to do is I want the ball to go to the middle every time. So I'm going to change that. So the X and Y are 0, 0. It's going to go to X, it's going to go to Y. And then if we've done any drawing, anything like that, we want it to erase, we want it to start again. So let's put an erase all in there. That's it for the reset button. For now, we might add to that later. So let me add a comment. Let me call it the reset button, so that if I need to come back to it later, I know exactly what it is and what it does. So let me move that one out of the way slightly. And then let's get on with the next bit. So I said we were going to move the ball around the screen using our arrow keys on our keyboard. Now, we've not done this before, so let's see how we're going to do that. Let's get a forever block. Well, let's get a, if we press green first, just to start us off. Let's get a forever block. And let me just pop that to the side there like that. Now, what we're going to need is we're going to need if then. Okay, if something happens, do something. What we're going to do is if I press up, if I press down, if I press left, if I press right. Now, there's going to be lots and lots of blocks here, but they're the same ones duplicated, so don't panic. So I'm just going to do the up one. So what we want it to say is if I press the up arrow, I want that ball to move up on the screen. So sensing if the key up arrow is pressed, I'm just going to have to zoom out slightly. If up arrow key is pressed, then what we want it to do is we want the motion. We want it to point toward, we want it to point upwards. So let me get point. And I want it, this is really handy, this. We don't have to worry about these angles too much because we can just change the arrow. So what I want it to do is I want it to point upwards and I want it to move a certain amount of steps. I'm just going to leave it, I might change it to 5 actually. So now if I bob that in there, so if I press up, let me just press green, so we're ready to go. If I press it up, that ball is going to move up like that. Now, what we need to do now is we need to do obviously down and left and right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cheat. I'm going to pull this out and I'm going to duplicate it. And then now I've put the two together, I'm going to duplicate that. So now I've got 4 together. Let me just zoom out slightly. So these all say up though. So what we need to do is we need to change these bottom 3 to the different ones. So if I press down, I want you to point down and move 5 steps. If I press the right arrow, I want you to point to the right and move 5 steps. And if I press left, I want you to point to the left and move 5 steps. And then those 4, I'm going to sneak here inside this forever block. Now that looks like a huge amount of blocks, a huge amount of coding. Actually, it's just the same 5 that we've just repeated again and again and again. Let me press green, let's test it. So it's gone back to the start because of that reset button. And now when I use my arrow keys, you can see we're moving around our screen. Perfect, done. It's quite slow. If you want to change the speed that it moves, that's that number 5. If I change that to 10, it'll speed up and it'll go faster. If I change it to 1, it'll slow down even more and it'll go even slower. Okay, so that's another one you can play with. So let's add a comment on that one, because they are our movement blocks. Movement blocks. Oh, can't see that again. Let me just change that. There you go, pop it there so we can see it. So far we've got a reset button, we've got our movement blocks. Doesn't look much like an art project yet. Okay, let's see if we can start to make it a little bit more brighter, a little bit more colourful. So what we're going to do is we're going to get it stamping. As it goes around the screen, as it moves around, it's going to leave a stamp behind it as it goes. Leave a little stamp on our screen. Let me try and move so we've got some space. I will leave this on the screen at some point so you guys can pause it and have a look. But let's keep going. So I want another green for go. Now you could combine some of these, but I just find it a lot easier if I keep them separate because I know what each little bit does. So this is where we're going to do some stamping. I want it to forever pen, sorry. I want it to leave a stamp wherever it goes. That's it for the stamping, but let's have a look. Let's just see what happens. So now, as I go around, I leave this orange trail behind me. I leave a stamp of the ball behind me as I go. It's pretty cool still. But let's have a go at changing the colour. So what we can do is on looks, we can change colour effect. Now you can see how fast that is changing the colour. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it down to 1. And now all of a sudden you can see it's just changing ever so slightly. It's changing a lot slower. So that now when I'm leaving my trail behind, I'm leaving this beautiful rainbow trail behind me. All right, I think it looks really cool. If you want more colour, you can change it, speed it up. Let's just change it to 2. Look, it's made a difference already with the amount of the speed that the colour changes. Let me press green to restart. So that is our colour stamp block. Okay, now you could leave it at that. That looks really cool. If I just zoom out so I can leave these on the screen just for a second so that if you need to pause it, you can do. So now's a good time to pause if you need to see those. But what we'll do is we'll add a couple more bits to it. I really like the idea of being able to change the size of the stamp so we can make it a much wider ball or a much narrower ball as it moves in our trail. So let's do that next. So what we want is some separate little bits. So if we want some more if-thens, we want if-thens, we want another forever, we want another green, like that. We actually want 2 of these. Okay. We want, now I'm just going to pick two different keys. Put that in there like that. I'm just going to pick Q and W just because they're on the opposite sides of the keyboard. So if I press Q, we're going to have it make the ball smaller. If I press W, we're going to have it make the ball bigger. It's nice and easy, guys. If we go on looks, if I go on change size, so we want Q, we want it to make it smaller. So let's do let's just do -2. Whereas if we press W, we want it to increase by 2. So it's just changing the size. So let's just have a look. Let me stop it from stamping. Let me just disconnect that. So it should have stopped it from stamping. I can still move around, but it's not stamping anymore. So let's make it smaller. So if I hold down Q, it's going to go really small. If I hold down W, I'm going to be able to make it really, really big, like that. And I can change, you can see it's changing here. The size is changing. So what we might want to do actually as well is back to our reset block, we might want to put in a set size to 100. What that's going to do is every time I reset it, so even if I make it really, really small, every time I reset my game, it's going to go back to the 100. It's going to go back to the start. Let me reconnect. So now we're ready to go. Let's move it around like that. Let's make it bigger. So let's hold down W. Now I've got a really big fat trail behind me. Let's change it to make it really small. Let me hold down Q. I can hold down Q while I'm moving it. That looks really cool. I can move changing the size as I go, as I move through. Yeah, I really like that. One more thing, just because I know that the kids in my class absolutely love it, is to add sound effects. So if I press Q and W, I can put a pop in there. So if you just listen, it does that. But let's just play around with that sound because I always love playing around with the sounds. So we've got the pop sound. Let me duplicate this. So we're going to have pop high. And we're going to have pop low. So pop high would be when we're going up, so I'm going to make it faster. Like that. And pop low, I'm going to make it slower. Like that. So if I go to here, if I change size by -2, so that's going down. So we want that one to be pop low. Let me duplicate that, sneak it in there. Change this one to pop high. So now if I'm going, if I'm making my ball bigger, sorry, let me press green. We get that sound effect. If we're making it smaller, we're getting that sound effect. Okay, I just really like adding sound effects to stuff sometimes, like that. I think that looks really cool when you change while you're moving. If you change the size while you're moving, and I mean now you can sit and play with that, and you can get some really interesting creations, some really interesting art projects. You could have a play around with it. You could draw with it. You could then screenshot it, print it, stick it on your wall. Yeah, loads of fun. Let me tidy up my screen. I've made a bit of a mess of my screen. Let me tidy up my screen just so that I can leave it on just to finish off. So this one, let me add a comment to this one. This was our changing size. So let me just say size changes. Make it smaller. Move it here. So those 4 sets there, those 4 blocks of code, those 4 sets of code are what you need. Let me make this smaller so you can see it a little bit better. So those bits of code are everything you need to have a go at making this game. I'd love to see you play around with it. The other thing that you could play around with that I haven't yet, I always like to leave a little bit so you guys can tinker with it. It'd be really interesting to see if you could play around with where we've got color effect. Could you play around with something like the pixel effect or the fisheye effect, so that when we change it, it changes it more pixelated or less pixelated? That might be really interesting for you guys to play around with and see what you can do. So let's finish off our project. Let's go back to our C project page. Let's give it a name, the rainbow trail. Let's leave some instructions. So we want to let people know how to use it. So use the arrow keys on your keyboard. Oh, can't type. Keyboard to move the ball around. Let's move the ball around and leave a bright color trail behind you. Let's let people know about the Q and W. So you can change the size of the ball with Q and W on your keyboard. Let's add the instructions for the reset. So press the green flag to reset any time. Okay, happy with that. Done. Let's press that magic share button. Now live with the world, ready to go. Yeah, I'd love to see some remixes. Love to see what you can do. Hope you enjoyed this one. See you soon. Bye.